You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. And now to begin our conversation on substitution of candidates, let's take this background report by correspondent Garba Nataala.
The Nigerian political scene, no doubt, has brought different innovations in electoral processes, and so far, several elections have gone successfully, ranging from screening to collation of casted votes to ensure hitch-free processes ahead of the 2023 general elections. Electoral observers have commended each move played out by political parties along with the umpire, except for the concept of placeholder. Some parties submitted names of their vice presidential candidates who they described as placeholder. June 17th was the day set aside as the deadline slated by INEC for political parties to submit the names of their vice presidential candidates to fill the spaces left for their running mates. Meanwhile, the Commission, however, notified political parties that the Nigerian constitutional and legal framework has no law on placeholders in view of running mates, saying it is unconstitutional. With an extension, parties have up to July 17th to substitute candidates. Political parties view the concept of placeholder as lawful. After making legal consultations, they see nowhere any law was breached. The ruling party, APC, and the Labour Party are caught in this loop of placeholder running mates. In APC, Kabir Masari was named as the running mate of Bola Tinubu, while the Labour Party named Dr. Doyin Okupe as the running mate of their presidential candidate, Peter Obi. Born out of contention now is whether to accept or deny the concept of placeholder. Is this obtainable elsewhere in the world or metamorphed in Nigeria? Could this constitute another talk of war between INEC and political parties? And that's what guests on Good Morning Nigeria will be talking about to provide answers.
Thank you very much, Natala, for that background. With us in the studios to discuss issues around the substitution of candidates for elections, we'd like to welcome two of our regular guests, Oluwole Osaze-Uzi, legal practitioner and an election expert. Wale, we'd like to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you for having me as usual. Good morning.
All right. Also here with us, I'd like to welcome Engineer Yabagi Yusuf Sani, is the national chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council. Yabagi Sani, delight to have you with us on the program this morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians.
Okay.
And also joining us is Abdullahi Haruna, son, that is former Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice District. Welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, let's just begin by having a general conversation around what is raging now, the so-called placeholder or proxy nominees for a dependent position, namely the vice presidential candidate. I'm wondering, I know this First Republic is throwing up all kinds of things. IPAC chairman, you are in the field. What are you getting from your members? Why are we having this lexicon being thrown at us now?
Well, thank you very much. If you look at the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, various sections of the Constitution empowers INEC, to before 30 days, not later than 30 days, and not earlier than 150 days to conduct elections into presidential, governorship, and all other offices, of the federation, And to do this, INEC has issued timetable for political parties to carry out certain activities leading to achieving this constitutional mandate, amongst which is submission of names of their candidates of the political parties. And you must understand the politics, the dynamics, the intrigues, the sentiments in our polity as far as Nigeria is concerned. There are so many dichotomies, so many issues that when you look at it critically, you might say it has no bearing with the Constitution in terms of provision. For instance, a presidential candidate must, by all means, balance all these sentiments if you really want to attract the votes, the critical mass that you want to satisfy the requirement of the Constitution, to cover the 23rd, I mean, 2/3 of the of the seats and things like that, acquire enough votes, and also to ensure that everybody feels that his part is carried along, it belongs. So that's why when it comes to presidential aspect, you'll find some parties not being able to name the running mate immediately, because aside from the timetable that INEC has given, there's a political timetable which you must meet, which is consultations, going to ensure that when I say Mr. A is my running mate, I'm able to carry along, for instance, if I'm from the north, that the southern part of the country feels part of the presidency when eventually you win. So this is why you find some parties are not able to right away say this is my running mate, but they cannot do that for long, because, like I said, INEC has issued the timetable, which has to be within the provision of the Constitution. For instance, for the presidential, you have until September, I think end of September, to ensure that your presidential, your running mate, it's on the ballot. It's submitted to INEC. You can now, like you talk about placeholder has existed for long. It's only now that these sentiments that I mentioned have been pushed to the front burner, that you are hearing, placeholder. It has been there all along, because the electoral law has provision for you to change your candidate. That if the candidate that you have submitted to INEC now says I'm withdrawing for whatever reasons, all INEC wants you to do is to, within the time limit, like I've said, for the presidential, maybe by the end of September, for the governorship by 15th July, you must have your bona fide, let me use the bona fide, candidates now that must run on that election. So I don't think it's an aberration. You would not violate any law, as far as the electoral law is concerned. Maybe it is mentioned in the Constitution, yes, but the electoral law, which is the act of the parliament that is aimed at administering the provision of the Constitution itself, because not everything can be stated in the Constitution. So that's why to INEC, it's okay, if you come within the time limit to say I'm substituting Mr. A for Mr. B. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
But I think, Gisani, as a politician, a lot of people will be thinking that as a politician who is vying for a position, you should have been ready enough with your plans, your manifesto, your ideas, your deputies, your assistants, or whatever, before even going into this very long, big process. And here we are today in Nigeria, having presidential candidates not even getting ready fully in courts, with their acts being put together in order to face the nation and campaign.
You see, nobody comes to run for the number one office in the country without being prepared. For instance, I already have my own running mate, because I'm also running as a presidential candidate. But the issue is this: there are processes. That's why I say that there's a political process apart from the INEC process that was given to us. You have to go through the primaries. Perhaps the person you wanted to put forward as your number two, person, by the time you go through the primaries, by the time you are able to galvanize the votes that will make you to become the candidate of that party, perhaps part of the negotiation, the trade-off, may be that, okay, if you want this bloc, us, to support you, then you have to look at this person. And if you want to win, and you know that, okay, this person, by all standards, is okay, he can do the job. He's a Nigerian, he's qualified, he has made the constitutional requirement, he has a track record that you believe, will help you in the office, then of course you have to change. So this is why you cannot really be final on such things until after the primaries, because primaries is about trade-off, about horse trading that you carry on. So that is what introduced, the issue of people not coming out immediately to say this is my running mate.
Well, thank you very much. I will raise another issue with you, because you have canvassed it on Good Morning Nigeria, and probably that's part of the consequence of what we are seeing now. This whole conversation around a proxy or a placeholder vice presidential candidate. Abdullahi Haruna, a senior advocate. Look, this is not the first time we're having a presidential election. In the Fourth Republic, and we've been having elections since the Republic came in. We had 2003, 2007, 2011, 2015, 2019, and 2023. Even during the Second Republic, I mean, this whole notion of saying, look, Oluwole is a presidential candidate, he will put forward Kingsley's name in the interim to FEDECO, and then awaiting a time when Nadabo will be on the ballot. We never heard this kind of stuff. What does it mean? I mean, we know that there are some clarities, with regard to the legal or constitutional definitions, but how do we understand this in the context of constitutional democracy?
Thank you very much. I think there's this provision in the Electoral Act in Section 31 that allows parties to substitute candidates in special circumstances. And the circumstances contemplated are either death of the running mate or case of withdrawal of the running mate. It is not a situation that is supposed to be open to candidates to put what they are calling temporary or interim placeholder or whatever they call it. It is a situation that is provided for an occasion that parties never contemplated. It is not a situation that parties begin to plan to meet certain requirements at a later date. I think it is what is happening is a Nigerian situation of exploiting or trying to exploit situations. It's my expectation that when you are ready to contest for an office, you are prepared for it from day one. And that is the contemplation of the provisions of our laws. This situation we have today is a peculiar Nigerian situation because the provisions for substitution are meant for substitution in actual circumstances, not a situation where you are not prepared and you put a candidate, even though technically you are said not to have violated the provisions, but I cannot say that argument eventually would stand, but the provision is actually there for substitution in special circumstances, but I don't think it provides for what they call placeholder.
Uzi.
Well, the politician has spoken, the chairman has spoken, the son has spoken. I don't know what you want me to say, but I digress a little bit in the sense that I think, let me take off from where Chair IPAC stopped. It's not new. Right. It's actually not new. When we take a historical overview of things, you find out that even in this post-1998-99 republic, as we call it, recall in Anambra State, I think it was Jim Wombudo who contested in 2007, if I'm not mistaken. After he had finished as governor, he contested the presidential. And when things did not work out, somebody stepped down, who was a senator representing his senatorial district, and the by-election was conducted, and he went back. In Imo, I think Achike Odenwa had a similar situation, but the person who was quote-unquote, was not, the placeholder nomenclature was not used at that time. The person who did refused to step down, and the person served his 4-year tenure. What is new is the name now being put on it, placeholders, surrogates, and things like that. And I think the son has said the mischief is that the law says, look, allows you to withdraw. Now, if the law allows you to withdraw, you don't have to give any reason. It doesn't stipulate that you must give a reason for withdrawal. So if I'm a candidate, I can voluntarily withdraw. Even for personal reasons, for no reason, for good reasons, for bad reasons, I can withdraw. The law allows you. The discretion is yours. So once you withdraw, then I think Njaya said something about September. It's actually last day for withdrawal and substitution. I think it's 12th of August for presidential candidates. Yeah. That's item 6 on the INEC timetable. Yeah. So that window is there. As long as you do so, there's absolutely nothing wrong. The problem will come on 2 occasions. One, if you try to go outside of that window. If it's a day later, sorry. I think it's 15th of July for presidential candidates and 12th of August for governorship candidates. So that window is there. It gives them discretion. The INEC cannot do anything about it. What INEC is saying is that, look, there is no nomenclature known as a placeholder, but it's a coinage of the political parties. And by the way, I think it's only one party that I know of, and they didn't officially tell INEC that this is a placeholder. Nobody has officially told INEC that this is a placeholder. I think it was only the Labour Party where somebody in the tweet, social media, said, oh, I'm just there temporarily. Mm-hmm. So it is the media, it's social media, it's us saying these are placeholders. I'm not too sure the APC has said that they have a placeholder. So the issue is that, can they do it? Yes, they can. But the law does not recognize that name, placeholder. The law allows you to withdraw if you, as the son said, on death of the candidate or upon on a voluntary basis, where he tells his party, the candidate informs his party, I wish to withdraw from this race. And then the party within the time has to communicate with INEC and say, look, our candidate is here, is the province of the candidate himself or herself to withdraw. Unlike in the earlier time, under the old Electoral Act of 2006, it was the party that had the right to substitute, to change candidates. But now it is the candidate who can voluntarily withdraw.
I'm just trying to throw back this question I gave you, Abakisani, to you, since you've already raised this, talking about the preparation and the readiness of political parties and their members in standing in for election.
Yes. Standing in for election,
that's the word here. When you stand, you know what you're standing for. You know who you're standing for. You know who you're carrying along. So why are all these things being put aside until when maybe in the 11th hour they must start thinking of, who am I standing with? Who am I going?
No, not really, because to be fair, yes, you're right. It is for the candidate to choose. The Constitution says the candidate shall choose a running mate as long as that person is from the same political party, but does not give criteria. And as the chairman IPAC has said, there are other dynamics. That's what one is the law, that's the Constitution. Mm-hmm. But the other one says, what are the considerations you bring to bear? Yes, you can come into the race. By the way, you don't nominate your running mates at the time you're contesting the nomination of the primaries of your party. You do so after. But yes, you should have an idea. And if you follow the stories surrounding June 12, for example, and how Chief M.K. Abiola chose his running mates, very interesting story. From what we have read from history, it says, look, he had somebody in mind, and at the time of after his nomination, he negotiated, as Engineer Agabi said, he negotiated these things, and he had somebody, and he had negotiated with the Yaradua faction, and that was going to throw up, I think it was a Atiku, if I'm not mistaken. But the other governors and the other people, SDP governors, said, no, we want Kingbe. And eventually, the dynamics changed. It settled for the dream team, because Kingbe came second, while Yaradua came, Atiku came third. So he said, look, let us get a dream team. Let us harness our energies, take the governors. The governors are the ones on the field. They are very important. The political considerations of the board to bear. MKO, you are popular and things like that. Let us have these two people. So those dynamics are there. Even though when you go into the race, you have a fair idea. But I think it's easier to say you have a fair idea of the kind of person you want, not necessarily a particular person.
Right.
Things change. It's a dynamic situation. So political considerations, other considerations will come into bear when you now decide to choose your own mate. Not necessarily that you're not prepared, but you have a notion of the kind of person that you want to be.
Well, thanks, Oluwole. But the reason why there is a public conversation around this issue will include the reports that you just mentioned, the Twitter, and the fact that somehow some of the names of the running mates would appear to have just been sneaked in. Ordinarily, I mean, if a presidential candidate has emerged and then you are having a running mate, both of you should be in public to say, hey, this is my running mate. Let's be realistic. What happened in 2003 at Eagle Square when Obasanjo won the ticket for his party to contest the 2003 election. He was already president. Atiku was his vice president, if you recall, and they had some internal squabbles. But right there and then, upon his being declared winner of the presidential primary, he defeated Alex Ekweme, if you recall. He announced, of course, they had worked out the internal dynamics to say, Atiku Abubakar, our vice president, will also be my running mate. It wasn't done in hiding. We know that there is a paperwork that, I mean, you worked in INEC, paperwork that will come to you. So this is the reason why there is this conversation. And I think that the point that the senior advocate raised is critical. yes, you have said, Usaze, that look, withdrawal doesn't demand any reason from the nominee for that particular position. But the senior advocate says, look, death or withdrawal as bona fide reasons or reasons for replacement of a candidate or substitution of a candidate, particularly in the case of withdrawal, does not contemplate anticipatory withdrawal. Senior advocate.
Yes.
Yes. I would like you to further. Doesn't, I mean, look, what is in the air is that Osaze, you are going to withdraw. Let's just put your name there.
I don't think that is the intent of that provision, because the provision even says the candidate will write a letter personally and deliver to his political party. So it is a decision which that candidate makes, not a decision that is dependent on political considerations, or it might be depend on political consideration, but must come from the candidate, not from people around him as a result of political environment. So I don't think the provision contemplates what is happening right now. And I don't, even though it does not technically violate the provision, the window is there for substitution, but I think the purpose of the window is different from what it is being employed to do.
Okay, yeah, but looking at this angle of the conversation and what you earlier alluded to, don't you think that this could be a risky venture for candidates in case I would say I would not withdraw at the end of the day, just like the case we put forward, although some have already put in their statements of withdrawal in the case and accepting some withdrawal in case there is any change.
Yeah. Well, the concern here is how is the electorate, treated? I mean, is he given a fair chance to really assess, the candidates that may emerge, the candidate and his running mate? I think because when you look at the Electoral Act, the Section 31 of the Electoral Act, Section 22 Electoral Act, it says not later than 90 days if you are going to make this substitution for both presidential, National Assembly candidates and also the governorship, like the commissioner says. The presidential is 15th July. And then for the governorship is 12th August. So which means 3 months to the election, you must, show Nigerians or the electors that this is my running mate, for them to be able to assess and then come to a judgment as to who, whether they accept what you are presenting to them. So I think to an extent the Electoral Act tries to take care of that void, where people do not have the opportunity of assessing the candidate. Then coming to the parties themselves, I think before most parties, like you said, will give you the requirement, of INEC to change the whatever they're putting there, which is that you must write a letter, your own handwriting, in a handwritten letter. You must also swear to an affidavit in the court of law that you must put your picture there. So in that case, it's not difficult. It's not possible in most cases for somebody to say, I'm not going to step down again, because the party would have extracted all these things that you need, for them to, seamlessly, change you and then put the person that you yourself must have agreed, because it's a consensus. I mean, it's a kind of agreement between the party or the individual and now the person that is being used as, like what you call placeholder, a placeholder. It is dynamic for the politics of Nigeria. We must accept that we have a lot of, dichotomies here that you must, one way or the other, for political reasons, address. Otherwise, you ignore them at your peril. And this is why I think most of the parties are, trying by all means to see how they can get the critical mass of the population to vote for them, end of the day. So the risk is there. But again, parties are aware of this risk, and most parties have taken steps to ensure that even if you say no, what INEC needs legally, will be presented, because it was, your own agreement. So it's all part of politics. It's not the legality of it, and also even the issue of looking at it from the point of view of conscience, or that it's not the intention of the law, people to abuse it. Nobody's abusing it. We politicians are just playing politics to ensure, but within the law, it is when you violate the law that it becomes an issue. But to play politics in a way to assuage and then accommodate and then carry along all the sentiments, everything that is Nigeria today, because Nigeria today cannot be described in the political space without you mentioning where is this person from, which faith is he practicing, who is unfortunately what is ours today. But we are praying, we are hoping, we are working towards a situation where anybody, without being given any coloration, will come out on his merit and be elected as next president of this country.
All right, thank you very much, Engineer Yabagi. Let's say ethno-religious considerations that you have mentioned, these considerations have always been there in our politics. Again, let's use the Second Republic, which is when we started the presidential system. When Shehu Shagari picked Alex Ekweme was not a placeholder. It was clear there were political considerations, religious considerations to say have a balance. We all saw that. But I want to take you back because again, on behalf of IPAC, you canvassed on Good Morning Nigeria the alteration of INEC clear deadlines for activities leading up to the 2023 general elections, particularly the conduct of the presidential primaries, the special conventions. I mean, you said so on Good Morning Nigeria. The alibi was, but parties are still struggling to understand the 2022 Act. It's pretty dicey. We've had a number of intervening activities. Namely, we had Lent and then Easter. We had Ramadan and all that. So you canvassed, and then INEC shifted the deadline. That's to say, IPAC canvassed as chair. Yeah. You canvassed, INEC shifted the deadline. So when that deadline was shifted, what were the political parties doing? Were they still asleep? If the deadline, were the parties not in a position to start plotting? If Ozi emerges as presidential candidate, this will most likely be our vice presidential nominee. If Nadabo emerges, Abdullahi cannot be. We have to look for. So, were the parties sleeping?
No, not at all. The parties are not sleeping, but the politics is so dynamic. Like every moment in politics matters. Things can change completely. What they're telling you today, tomorrow, by the time you wake up, it's a different story entirely. And this is because of the dynamics of the situation that we are as Nigerians in this country. So, but the issue is this: it's not so much that we are sleeping or that we will not at any given point in time will not approach INEC to take a look at what we have, because politics cannot be straitjacket thing. It can't be so fixed. But of course, not violating the law. And we are also mindful of the fact that the regulator has a lot of things to do. They also require time to do them. So that's why even when we're asking for that extension, it wasn't an extension really. It was our own time. We're asking them to give to us. Although it cost us now, as we speak, some issues really, have just, sprung up because of that time that NX said, okay, if you're asking for your own time to give in to you, we had anticipated that you needed this time to clean up, and then before you submit to all the names of your candidate, that's why we gave you these 6 days, so that you can now spend time to say, okay, before you start uploading, So, but we said no, give it to us. They gave it to us, but then, like I'm telling you, we had problems when the deadline for the uploading came. But again, because this is something we are doing for the first time, INEC themselves, they are also introducing certain novelties, certain developments, which is largely based on technology. And technology sometimes is not friendly, especially when you have an environment like ours. The infrastructure for communication is so still substandard. It's not at the best that you want it. So this is why INEC most times is sympathetic, with the political parties. Not to violate the law, actually. Is to give allowance so we can do it right. Because, like we said, even that time, recruitment of leadership in this country, believe you me, requires a lot of due diligence, a lot of long, considerations, and then so that you don't end up with what we're having today. Whether we want to believe it or not, what we are having today as leadership does not meet the requirement of this country. That's why we are having political, social, and economic reasons, problems that we shouldn't be battling with. So this is why political parties have taken it upon themselves to ensure that whoever we present as our candidate for all elections is somebody that you can say, yes, this person possesses what it's required in terms of credibility, in terms of demands, past records and things like that. So that is why within the time frame of INEC, we ask for some adjustments, and then I think after that one, we have never asked for any adjustment again. It's just to ask, except now that the Nigerians themselves are asking INEC to extend the online registration,
That's for voters. That's for voters.
Nigerians, that's for voters. Exactly. So, and then we are watching, how it will play out.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much, Yaba Gisani. It's a fact you said Nigeria needs good leaders and good leadership, and of course, that's not to say that things are really rosy and at least are really very bad, but all the same, there's deficit of leadership, and care must be taken in selecting them. But that is not also to say that the political parties are mindful of the reasons behind why this conversation is going on. It's not just happening here, and we must agree it's all over the place, and we should contribute in this regard. Abdullah Haruna, what comments would you make about the issue of credibility of this whole issue on the polity, talking about it being novel, sounds new, it's an innovation, whatever, but the credibility issue is very important. What would you say?
I think the politicians owe us a duty of honesty. And the intent of the law is that the politicians will come and be open with us. A situation where they are not actually putting forward a candidate or a person on their ballot, and then they present that person to us knowing that that's not the person they intend to put forward. I think they have a moral obligation, even if they are not violating any law. Our politics needs to change. There is need for honesty, there is need for openness, and that's what the law provides for. Because the law creates a window does not mean that we should be dishonest with the electorate. The electorate needs to know the facts as they are. And I think that's the intent of the provision. And so that also accounts for the kind of leadership that we get. The leadership needs to come through. You should be open. You should be honest. If you are not able to meet a deadline, you think you should. Once the law has made a provision and a time frame is set for the doing of an act, I think because we are a nation that we want everything to work, everybody must work towards it. And I think there's a moral obligation to stay within the limits of the provisions, even though the provisions are not violated. So I think that it is also something we should strive to meet. There's a moral obligation for the politicians to be honest and open with us. There is no room for this situation. And I think that once we are open and honest, we would get to where we want to be.
You
want to weigh in here before I bring you?
I will also support what I'm trying to say. I'm sure about that. Because INEC has not released the list yet. INEC has not said these are the candidates that are going to run for these elections. It's like you said, somebody went on Twitter and said, I'm a placeholder. That is not known to INEC at all. INEC is waiting for the time when they ask you to bring your final list, and then publication will be made. Like the section 32(1) of the electoral say that publication of final list of nominated candidates by the commission. It's for presidential 20th September. That is when the Nigerians will get to know who is the presidential candidate of which party and who is the running mate. And then when it comes to the governorship, it's 4th of October. Then you will know who the governor for your state is going to be and who his deputy is going to be. And ditto the House of Assembly members and things like that. So INEC has not come out to say this is the list of the people that are going to contest elections. It is just politics that we are, the political parties doing their own thing, and then trying to see how. We have.
Yeah, Engineer Yabagi, yes. I don't know. Well, you said Uzi was going to support you on this, but maybe he might. But let's pursue the line that Haruna is saying. spoke about, namely, and you also touched on that, what the apparent disregard for the electorate. So the voters are going to be switching in their heads. Oh, Uzi is running late. No. It's Haruna that is running late. No, it's Kingsley. No, it's not that boy. Don't you see that they said in September that's when the list will come out, and so on and so forth. So why this disregard? Yes, you are functioning within the ambit of the law, but it also raises issues around moral obligation, honesty, openness, and more importantly, due regard to the electorate. If you make a choice, what does this amount to? Indecision. So if you are in office, is this the way you are going to be beating with the fate of the nation? No, that's the issue.
It's not. You see, this what is happening today is largely internal affairs of political parties.
Yes, but they have implications.
Ordinarily, the public shouldn't even know about this. It's our internal process, because the primaries are internal process to political parties. Until we now submit to the INEC that this is the list of who the candidate is going to be, and the INEC publishes it, then it becomes public information. Then it's now external. Then you can now be talking about how the electorate is taking for a ride or whatever, which INEC would never allow that to happen. Once you put it there, and INEC will never allow you to change anything again. That's what Osaze was saying, that you must meet that deadline. One day, after that deadline, you can do nothing about it. So today, all the processes leading to that publication of the list is internal affairs of political parties, and also between INEC and political parties submitting the documents to INEC, who is the regulatory agencies, who will tell Nigerians, not the other parties, not the parties telling Nigerians. It's just politics. And you can see some presidential candidates are using it, to win some cheap points that that's one cannot plan. No. I mean, it's not true.
Engineer Yabagi is saying it's internal to the political parties, but some persons would argue activities, actions, and decisions of political parties could also have public implication. And in any event, political parties are what? They have members. And in some cases, some political parties brag about having tens of millions of members. So what these tens of millions of members are not also in the picture? Or is it just a cabal now that is wrangling? Is it so internal to the political parties that it doesn't have public implication?
And he was also saying that you will agree with what you said.
No, I don't. No, it doesn't represent that.
But he's very conversant with what I'm saying.
I'm a bit conversant. The political dynamics, I'm not conversant with it. But yes, there are lots of issues. So anything that happens in political parties is of concern to the public, because political parties are, of course, the drivers of democracy. They are the ones who sponsor and produce candidates. So whatever you do has ripple effects on the larger society. So it's of great interest, of public interest. I agree with him to the extent that it has, oddly enough, I don't know whether it's by design or otherwise, become almost an internal party issue. Because prior to now, once you have a candidate, by the way, INEC is within 7 days obligated by law to publish the personal particulars, not a list of candidates, the personal particulars of the candidates. That's right. So that the public can scrutinize in the constituencies. For presidential, Nigeria is the constituency. For governor, you go to governor, respective constituencies. So Nigerians can have the opportunity to scrutinize these things. Prior to 2022, any Nigerian, any citizen could go and challenge the particulars submitted by the candidates. But the 2022 Act changed that. Only aspirants who partook in the primary election can now challenge it. So in that sense, the law, I don't know whether it's inadvertent or otherwise, has made it technically, as the word sound we use rightly so, technically the internal affairs, it doesn't concern you. It doesn't even concern party members. It only concerns aspirants who partook in the primaries. Whether it should be so or it shouldn't be so, I won't concern myself with the normative, but this is what the reality.
That is with regard to qualification.
Yes, sir. Yes. But that's what I'm saying now. But it is of interest to the public to know whether the person is qualified or not. By the way, placeholder is not limited to vice presidential candidates.
Certainly.
The candidate themselves, actually, the law talks about the candidates. So even the presidential candidate, and there are stories of some people holding certain parties in case plan A, plan B, in case it doesn't work out in this one, we'll go. So they have placeholders even for presidential, governorship, and such candidates as well. We should not lose sight of that.
That's
the
right.
concentration now is on vice presidential, but even on the
Well, you can elaborate on it. I mean, that's useful
Yes.
for this conversation.
Yes.
So we're talking generally about substitution of candidates.
Generally.
Yes. Yes. I mean, you saw some persons who, when they lost their presidential power, quickly ran back and then,
and the person, the placeholder there withdraws, and he becomes the nominee of that party. We saw one of the what the term smaller parties, for example, where a very well-known figure, after he lost the primaries, withdrew. We don't know what his next step will be, but don't be surprised if during the time for substitution somebody withdraws and he becomes the presidential candidate of yet another party. This is not just limited to what they term the big parties. It happens to almost all the political parties. Some people form political parties, so they have their own platforms, and they have substitute platforms they can use in case things don't work out in the main parties. But I agree with the side. In laws, you have to look at the technical, you have to look at the intendment of the law. The intendment is that, look, if for any reason, good reason, it doesn't say, although we don't have a reason, but look, I have suddenly become, my health has taken the turn for the worse. I'm not too sure I can do the rigors of the things, or I've tested the waters, I'm not too sure I like it, or I've seen a better person, whatever, you can withdraw. So you don't take the public contemptuously, you don't take them for a ride. But if they do that, the public should punish that party by not giving them their votes. So there's a potential of a sanction. These people cannot be serious. They can't take us for a ride. They can't be contemptuous of us. They can't disregard us completely. So the parties should be realistic and say, look, how does this portray us? How does this portray our candidates? These are the kind of dynamics that they should choose. They should look into in playing these political quote unquote games.
Okay, thank you, Uzi. Son, Abdullahi Haruna, given what Uzi said, and given the authority given to the parties to take this in this electoral act as an exclusive right for the political parties to do that, and to some extent the candidates themselves to do just that, there may be some legal vacuum here, I would ask, because the public is not carried along in this provision. And then secondly, this might have affected, or rather may have affected, or rather influenced the situation in certain quarters and certain parties, where some people, after losing the primaries of the presidential, would want to go back and pick certain tickets, even if they didn't, participate in the primaries. I mean, is there no vacuum like here, or is that all right?
Well, I think that this situation, like he said, is not the intendment of the provision for substitution, but an advantage is being taken of the situation. But I also think that because we are running a democracy, even the political parties, what they term internal affairs, should be something that is open to the public and to their members, because even the members of political parties complain that there's no internal democracy. So when parties try to go through the process of choosing the leadership, that process should be open, and people should be able to interrogate this process as it goes along. And I think that is why we demand this openness. And a situation where we are doing hide and seek because it does not violate any law, I don't think is right. And I don't think that is what was intended. And I think parties should struggle to fill the position so that at the earliest opportunity, the electorate has an opportunity to interrogate the process and the candidate. And also, I think it creates some vacuum, like he said, which the electorate can take advantage of. If at every moment we are not sure who the candidate is, I think it will be impossible to make up our minds in respect of the platform. Mm-hmm. And I don't think also that that's the intendment of the political parties. I don't think they want to keep the electorate guessing all through until certain time in September, because their processes, like we said, if the particulars of the candidates are published in the constituency and then somebody now goes to challenge the particulars published of a particular candidate, And then will the answer be that, oh no, he's not the real candidate? Yeah, we are hoping that somebody. I mean, that's not the intent of the situation. So I think that when deadlines are given, because the process we're undergoing is a serious process, the political parties should take the process serious and be open and honest and comply with it.
Well, I think we should also have, for the benefit of our viewers, some understanding of the placeholder practice in the United States, for instance, from where we have borrowed substantially our presidential system of government. You have a placeholder where a person, such as we're saying now, steps into the office, whether it's legislative office or executive office of another person, and the intention is that he would complete the term or tenure of that person into whose office he has stepped into without the intention of contesting for that office again. In other words, let us assume something happens now, and we have from now to 2023. All right, let's say this was in January, not right now, so that you could have participated in the primaries XYZ. Something happened in January. So Kingsley, you are a placeholder for this governor, or you are a placeholder for XYZ. Go and take over the position. Now, when the primaries are coming in May, you are not contesting. You just run out the term until 2023. But that analogy doesn't apply to us, because, for instance, where a vacancy arises in the legislature, the Constitution mandates the conduct of a fresh election to fill that vacancy, not the use of a placeholder. So that's one point I think we should clarify. The other issue I would like, gentlemen, for us to elaborate on, again, not just the vice presidential nominees, that whether interim or surrogate, in several other instances, whether in the legislature or whether in the governorship or otherwise. The so-called placeholder idea would work where there is no crisis. In other words, if Nadabo is a placeholder, the time comes in Nadabo, oh boy, step down, and he actually steps down. But if he says he's not stepping down, then there is a crisis.
Yeah.
Now, if that crisis arises, as they tell us this, it is not costless to resolve. Namely, if a challenge then arises in court as to whether somebody else validly participated in the primaries, are you not going to be summoning INEC? Is INEC not going to be spending money on all of these issues to say, look, all right, no, we didn't view this primaries, we didn't monitor this primaries, this was what we did. You are attending litigation all around the country. Are we taking a look at this?
I wouldn't know. I'm sure the legislature should take a look at that, and we as civil society media should also take a look at that. Let me even quickly just add that by way of enlightenment, that look, if it is a legislative seat, once the person withdraws, then you go back and conduct another primary. There are some people who, so once it's if a senator, house member, or whatever, once you withdraw, there is no automatic replacement
of that earlier candidate.
You should go back and conduct a primary within 14 days, if I'm not mistaken. Within 14 days, you go back and conduct another primary. So there's an ability,
which will be monitored also.
Every primary is monitored. Any meeting or primary valid primary to choose a candidate for an election has to be monitored by law, by the INEC, not discretion. In fact, the new word used by the new Electoral Act, it shall be monitored by INEC. Yes, there are cost implications to everything. Unfortunately, we are so steeped in discussing procedural issues, we don't look at the other aspect of things: the cost of elections, the cost of electioneering, the cost of our democracy, the economics of it all. What there's every monitoring, for example, the law is absolute. Go and monitor. It doesn't think, and it's in the belief that the Preparation Act will give you sufficient funds to carry out these functions that the law has saddled you with. So, but everything has cost implications. So when you have in a legislative seat that you go and conduct another primary, it's costly to the contestants, it's costly to the political parties, it's costly to the government, to you and I, the taxpayers. It's costly to everybody, it's costly to society. Perhaps this money can be better spent on other things, because there are conflicting priorities, but this has become a priority. You must now devote funds to it. So there are cost implications in everything that we do.
So the political parties, to use Engineer Yabagi's are playing games without bearing in mind the cost implications of the games that some of them are playing right now. We're going to take a short break. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live from the studios of the Nigerian Television Authority. We're discussing this morning's substitution of candidates by political parties, especially after the primaries. And the time it is taken for some other positions to be filled in. We've been talking here with Oluwole Osage, who is a legal practitioner and election expert. He has been here with us since we started. Abdullahi Haruna, senior advocate, also former Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice of the State, is right here with us. And then we also have the IPAC National Chairman, Yabagi Yusuf. Let's continue, Yabagi. And then for the remaining maybe 20 or so minutes, what we can make out of the remaining aspects. We're talking about the the credibility and the vacuum being created by this practice that seems to be novel. But the issue here is, according to Abdullahi Haruna, there was supposed to be some moral obligation, on the part of the political party, especially the intern, the executives with whom on whose shoulder distance have been sold to the public, especially to their members, since some political parties claim to have so many millions of members. This seems to be jettisoned in this regard.
Not at all. I don't think it is. If you look at the process leading to the primaries and then to the emergence of the candidates as they are today, parties adopted what was allowed by the Constitution, by the electoral law, which is the consensus. Majority of parties, went for the consensus. Not for anything. It's to ensure that you do not have so much rancor, and then which going into the general elections may even divide the party, and then will lead to the party losing, an important election like presidential or governorship elections. So I think politicians are being committed to the ideals, of building a very strong, virile, Nigeria, which comes from leadership. And that's why most of these things you see as taking the citizens for a ride or not being straightforward, it's not it at all. Believe you me. What it is that politicians are being taken to task today. Nobody is happy about what is happening to us in this country today, and it's all about leadership. Everybody can tell you this. We are not lacking in terms of resources, in terms of human capital, in terms of the mere size of the country and the population and everything that you need to make a great country is here, plus more. So, but what is standing between us and this greatness is leadership. And how do you solve it? We are now in the process of solving it. So why should we rush over something that is so critical, so important to us, even today as it is, and then say, oh, we want to satisfy this, so let's rush it. Let's just give Nigerians what they want to see, hear us. No, the politicians have been patriotic. Believe you me, they have been patriotic. They are not doing it for the sake of saying some selfishness or changing somebody or not allowing citizens to have a say in what is going to happen. Look at what happened in the electoral law, like Chief Oluwole was saying, about the fact that today you cannot just challenge, a candidate, if you had not participated in the valid, in that primaries. It's because the whole thing was being trivialized. Before you know it, somebody will work out somewhere who knows nothing about what was happening, and because he wants to be settled, will now approach a court of law, and the whole thing becomes an issue. That so that's why they don't want the process to be trivialized. Same way, politicians, party, the chairman, executives do not want a situation where the whole process, is trivialized in a way that, people will not even respect, the politicians anymore. So that's why we're taking our time to see that we meet the requirement of INEC, but within the time allowed, we now try to see how we can solve these problems of Nigeria, which is these dichotomies, these sentiments that have nothing to do with, in fact, if you put it critically, with the merit and then the kind of qualification and the comportment and the kind of person that you want to lead the 21st century economy, Nigeria, which is the biggest country you can ever think of in population, economy on the continent of Africa. So the issue, we occupy a position of leadership. We must demonstrate it, and to demonstrate it is to put your best leg forward, and that's why the politicians are trying to do as political parties. Believe me, that's what we're trying to do.
Right, that's good. Thank you. That's idealistic, and we'll see how it plays out. But let me also remind you, putting you on the spot. You're a regular guest, and we do appreciate the fact that you honor our invitations to join in conversations of significance whenever we do tap on you. I do recall, and verily so, you pointed out that sometimes in making our laws, we do not consider the cost implication. You say, as Oluwole pointed out, say INEC shall, within a time delimited for it, monitor fresh primaries. Monitor. It doesn't care. The law doesn't care where INEC will get the resources from. Monitor, even though it had previously monitored.
Exactly.
So and that's why I raised the issue of cost.
Yes.
Because yes, you're talking about political parties trying to get their very best to present to Nigerians to choose from, so that from 2023 we then have a new person. But we're also looking at the broad range of institutional candidates and the cost implication. So as I pointed out, look, if a person is stepping down because he has been a placeholder, to conduct fresh primaries, say for the legislature or otherwise, the cost will involve the new contestants, it will involve the political parties, it will also involve INEC. For political parties considering this, while again they are playing these games that we talked about.
Yeah, no, you see, like you rightly said, there's no need analysis done by even the National Assembly themselves when they pass some of these laws. They should have looked at the implications. If you say INEC shall do this, do that, okay, what does it cost them in terms of resources? And again, look at even political parties like you're talking about. People are talking about monetization of politics and things like that. By the way, just yesterday we received a letter from FRS that we should come and pay tax.
Oh, that's a good one. Because we have raised it on Good Morning Nigeria.
No.
We raised it.
But that is contrary. That is against the constitution of this country. Political parties are non-profit organizations. I mean, how do you as an institution, now support monetization of politics?
You are selling forms. You are selling forms at how much?
No. That's beside the point. I mean, it's a shame that FRS will come out to monetize politics, and you are complaining that primaries that took place in Ekiti was monetized, and the institution saying, come and pay tax, come and pay VAT, come and pay this. What are you telling us?
Yeah, because you are getting into trading activities. You are selling forms, not for a nominal.
Two wrongs don't make a right. Don't give a wrong impression of our politics, please. This is not the way to go about it. So these are the things that we must address. Why don't you instead mobilize EFCC more than you have done now, and let them come up with people that are really guilty of these things, and then punish them? Why must a whole FRS be now put in this light that is so shameful, so embarrassing to the country? So the point I'm trying to make is that we make laws, and our institutions go into doing things without really looking at the complications of what they are doing. They just look at the immediate like you are now clapping for them. They think that is not the issue.
I'm sorry to have interjected.
Yes, sir.
But please, could you oblige us with some of the details of what FIRS is demanding of the political parties? Is it tax?
What they are asking us to do is what you ask a profit organization, a profit-making organization, to which normally the tax officers will go. They say we'll give you 30 days, otherwise we'll
shut down your business.
I can't shut down political party.
But there's a criteria.
What do you want to do? Say pay VAT for what?
The income is
pay VAT on your nomination form.
Income.
The details, as if you will.
They might as well go to Federal Ministry of Finance, or Federal Ministry of or go to parastatals that come and pay your tax.
No. I mean, we have our TSA. When money comes, it goes straight to TSA. TSA, and you can't get more than 25% of it out to retain.
Yeah, but this one also goes to our own TSA too.
No, you have.
Political parties are not funded. I don't know if they are aware that government is not funding political parties, which is also another issue that
it is trying to
interrogate. Because you don't want many banks to hijack the process. and you have created an institution without funding it, and you say, go and do all these things. INEC will come out and say, do your primaries, do this, meet us, submit this to us. How do you do it? Nobody ever think about it. They say, you don't want...
Get subscriptions from your members. We have said that on Good Morning
The
Nigeria.
members that you are popularized so much that they don't even know how to
Popularize.
the same thing. How do they pay you? Please, in this life we pay members. You
pay your party members to attend your rallies.
To even come to rallies because to tell you don't have money to come.
Okay, thank you, Yabagi. That's a very good one. It's a very nice song for Abdullah Aruna, senior advocate. This should interrogate this issue of, cost implication of some of these provisions of the Constitution, of the Electoral Act per se. If, for instance, these elections are going to really, the primaries will take place again, in certain circumstances where the law calls for it. The cost implication as being put forward by my, colleague here, Kingsley, may be a little bit heavy on INEC and, of course, the political parties themselves. Now, do you see that as worthwhile a venture instead of having to have nipped it in the bud at the beginning before even getting into this, placeholder thing and then a substitution thing and the rest of them?
I think is one of the problems of our democracy that is over monetized, and it creates the impression that it is those with money that can drive the process, because a candidate who wakes up preparing for one election eventually will have to contest more than 2 elections, because for instance, when you go and do the first primary, you probably think that you are done with it, and then all of a sudden another one comes. And sometimes this funding is a big problem for a lot of candidates, because when you talk of funding for political parties, it actually comes from aspirants. Most of the funding that the political parties use come from the aspirants, and most times it is a big problem for a good candidate, because most of the people who have the money to fund these things are not actually the desired candidates. And that's why there's no room for the good candidates to actually find an opportunity to key into the process, because the funding is a lot of factors, it's a stumbling block for a lot of people. And I think that funding is a big problem to engaging in the politics as it is right now. And there must be a way to address some of these issues. Creating this, sometimes these are options that are created to take care of actual situations. And then when they take advantage of some of these things, it creates funding problems, it creates obstacles to proper participation of proper persons who don't have money.
I was just wondering, in terms of arrangements, in the event, say, for a legislative seat, a validly nominated candidate decides to withdraw, and the party is then going to conduct another primary, will the contestants in the fresh primary be required to also pick the expression of interest and nomination forms at the cost at which the others had earlier picked, including those who had lost earlier?
This is a new process. It's a new process.
So that adds to the cost.
That's
for the contestants.
Exactly.
And then the one who has a shallow pocket rather than a deep pocket
probably withdraws.
Falls by the wayside.
Yes. And so money continues to play the big role in our politics. And most times you find that it is the people or the candidate or the aspirant who does not have the money, who has the feeling of the public or of the electorate, who can properly represent. Some of those with the money are living away from the electorate, and they have lost contact with the electorate. And then you discover that these persons who ought to properly represent the electorate or his constituency falls by the wayside because he cannot afford the cost. And so money is playing a big role in our politics.
Some of these candidates must have, sweated out and then exhausted their pockets before now, and they may be the preferred candidates and most eligible by the, accepted by the public. And now when this issue comes up again, as you said, they may not be able to contest again because of the money they are going to spend, which of course they do not have. And Yaba Gisani is seriously trying to defend the fact that it's really a work in progress in search of leadership for this country, given the present scenario and of course the scenarios in the past. Uzi, do you see this really not like, not meeting what Yabagi and the politicians are thinking about in case primaries are going to be conducted again in certain quarters for certain reasons where such good candidates may drop along the way?
Well, this is part of the complexities of our system, and that is one of the reasons why some people call for independent candidates to be introduced into our political process. But for now, it's not there. You must still belong to a political party and be sponsored by that political party. In everything we do, we must look at the cost benefits analysis. So these are things you take into consideration. And by the way, the monetization of politics is not peculiar to Nigeria. Let's be quite honest about it. Contest elections anywhere in the world, you need quite a bit of money. That's the truth. Many believe that Donald Trump will probably never have become president of the United States if he didn't have a deep pocket. He's flying around in his Trump presidential jet and things like that. Costs money. But there are creative ways of raising money, both candidates and political parties. They have creative. In America, for example, corporations are allowed to donate to political parties and political causes. Here, it's prohibited by law. Whether they do it, they might do it in an underhand manner. And by the way, talking about taxes, by the way, my direct just 1 second, the political parties are required to pay taxes. So you're supposed to pay VAT, withholding tax, pay as you earn. You are supposed to pay and remit those funds to the government. Okay. It may be that I don't know the contents of that letter. It may not be on your profit because you're not a profit-making organization. You cannot be taxed on that. That is wrong. But for all those other categories of taxes, you are required to by law. You're not exempt from the law. You're a body corporate created by the constitution and bound by the constitutional provisions. Yeah. So when you employ people, you withhold their tax and remit to government. When their services rendered, you pay VAT. Yeah. You pay withholding tax. If you make a profit from capital gains tax, you pay capital gains tax like everybody else, like every other creature.
But if you are generating income from the sale of funds,
it's not a generation of income that you tax, is the profit.
So it's the profit. So after expenditure, then there must be something left.
There may be nothing left.
Okay, but I look. Tell us something.
Yes.
What is it like? Relating with political parties ahead of elections, where there seems to be desperation, a lot of paperwork, people are coming in and changing the substituting names, because again, for the benefit of our viewers, you have touched on that. Let's explain. Under the 2010 Electoral Act as amended, the substitution of candidates was the power that was vested in the political party for cogent and verifiable reasons. At some point, that one was being abused, which is why under the Electoral Act 2022, grounds for substitution will be death, which of course is final, or withdrawal. To say, look, take the power away from the political parties now. Let the power reside in the candidate. But we have seen the political parties now getting into anticipatory withdrawal for so-called placeholder. So just briefly, what is it like dealing with political parties? It must be, you guys must have been bombarded. You were director in INEC before you retired. It must have been pretty challenging.
It is indeed. When you work in a place like INEC, when you have to deal with politicians and political parties, then you get a better understanding of how Nigeria works. In everything that you do, in every remedy you bring, it creates its own problems because the politicians are always creative. The mischief you are trying to curtail, there are always other things that come in that they will. It's like the substitution matter and the issue of placeholder things. Now, it was the 2006 Act. Prior to 2006, you cannot change. It was the political parties' initiative and discretion to change political parties.
Change candidates,
I beg your pardon. If you go to the law reports, you will see so many times where they just change people. So then we introduce something. cogent and verified reasons. And that's how Rotimi Amici became governor and things like that, because they were happy on the old law, think it's our right. No, so no, the law has now changed. You know, the cogent and verifiable reasons. You did not produce cogent and verifiable, so we will not accept Omehia, Rotimi, Supreme Court held that Rotimi Amici is the person. That has changed. Law has changed. It's dynamic. It changes with times. But each time there's a new thing. And maybe next cycle now, with all the substitutions and things like that, and this withdrawals, I don't know what will happen. And parties have been very creative. They now design this form. Some parties design forms so you withdraw even before you are nominated. Ridiculous. The law doesn't envisage that. And I hope that if anybody is, if they use that card and bring the letter you at the time you are filling your nomination, I hope it will be successfully challenged in court, because it is the law contemplates that you withdraw after your nomination. So whether you backdate that letter attached to the form, I've seen some of the forms attached to the form is a withdrawal letter. Okay. Which should not be, and they require you to sign it before they accept your forms. That is wrong. That's not a voluntary thing. That is very, very wrong. That's anticipatory, and the law doesn't envisage anticipatory withdrawal. Just like you say, the law doesn't anticipate surrogate candidates, placeholder candidates. The law doesn't anticipate that at all.
All right. Thank you, Oluwole Osaze Uzi, for that explanation. And of course, we thank you so much too for being part of this program this morning. We've got to call it quits here, gentlemen, because of time, and it's our pleasure to be part of it, Uzi. Abdullahi Haruna, Senior Deputy of Nigeria, former Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice, Kogi State. It's our pleasure.
Thank you very much.
And then our friend here, Baji Yusuf Sani, IPAC National Chairman, and of course, not forgetting the fact that he is also a presidential candidate of the Action Democratic Party. Thank you so much for being part of this. We hope you're going to continue to be part of this discussion. And good morning, Nigeria. Most of the time we call on you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. A very good thank you to also for being part of this. Now let's look at the world of sports for a bit of it.